dusk has fallen here on the hills of Martinsville, Virginia, as we get ready to go nighttime racing in our 22nd race of the season. Good evening, everybody, and welcome here to the Paperclip Short Track, known as Martinsville, as we are getting ever closer to determining our 16 drivers that will battle it out in this season's chase for the championship, including tonight's Martinsville race. 5 races remaining until we will know what our playoff grid will look like. This is going to be a very interesting race as well, because this is the first time in a long time that Martinsville has been back on a schedule of a series that I've done. A number of other tracks also made their return onto the schedule. Bristol made its return. We had a bit of a wreck fest there. New Hampshire made its return. That race ended up being a really good one right down to the finish. We're going to have to see if this is going to be a good race or not. Now, this was one of the tracks that I tested out at the beginning of the season, and I think this is going to be a good race. I'm hoping. My fingers are crossed. We're just going to have to wait and see. And of course, here at a short track, track position is everything. It's 75 laps in length here today. So probably a lot of your drivers you see up in probably the first 3 or 4 rows are going to be your contenders possibly for this win. But if we do manage by some miracle to go this 75 lap distance completely green, we could see some drivers at the back, mid-pack, be able to utilize some pit strategy, maybe gain some track position, and be a late factor in the closing stages of today's race. We're going to have to wait and see if that's going to be the case or not. But let's go down and see what our front row looks like, as it's going to be an all Joanna Atwood Motorsports front row. Ryan Acosta lining up on the pole. Alongside of him, J Qualls. Now, Acosta comes into this race 16th in points. J Qualls 20th in the standings. Both of these drivers, if they were able to get a victory, they would more than likely put themselves in position for a playoff spot. And without further ado, it's time to go down trackside and get those most famous words.
Drivers, start your engines!
Lining up there in 3rd place, going to victory lane last week for the 2nd time this season, Zach Rogers. And you will see as your playoff grid pops up here, since we've only got a little bit of time to show you playoff grid, Zach Rogers with his 2nd win not only jumped up to the top of the point standings, but he jumped up to the top of the playoff grid. So Zach Rogers right now a confirmed spot in the playoffs, along with William Brock, Jordan Lopes, and J Millz, who have all been to victory lane multiple times this season. You will notice J Shelly is still in the playoff grid, but missing is Wyatt Quail after a DNF last week at Texas. He is now outside the top 30 in the point standings, 32nd, which means Levi McIntire, 3rd in the overall point standings. Right now, via points, would be in that final 16th playoff spot. Here we go then, 75 laps of racing at the Paperclip Martinsville. Green flags in the air, let's roll! And J Qualls was ready for the green. He'll swing around the outside and take the lead from his teammate Ryan Acosta. J Shelly's not out of the woods yet. We've been highlighting himself and Wyatt Quail last couple of weeks due to the fact that the two of them come into the race near the cut line, 30th in the standings. Shelly is still 30th in points coming into this race. He's got a 2-point advantage over D Yepez, who is 31st. Battle will be back here, currently for the 4th position. Levi McIntire, so close to getting Zach Rogers in the final stages of last week's Texas race. Now he's in the tire tracks of the 6 once again, as he's still trying to get his first win of the season. Right now in the playoffs via points, but if we have a different driver go to victory lane here tonight, that would put his chances more and more in jeopardy. And right now with the 11 and the 10 in 1st and 2nd, those are 2 drivers who would bounce over him. They would surpass him in the playoff standings and take the 16th spot away. Whoa, we had contact back here for 5th. Jack Mitchell and J Shelly. Shelly putting the bumper to the back of the McDonald's Chevrolet and almost put him into the grass there. J Shelly right now in 6th place, so he's got to keep an eye on that 0-car D Yepez, who is just outside of the top 10 right now. Actually, he just moved into 10th place. He cannot let that 0-car pass him, because if he does, then he's going to be in big trouble of staying inside the top 30 in points. They are 3 wide mid-pack here. That is Matt Haas, J Shelton, and K Batson. That is just outside of the top 20 as well. 3 wide here at Martinsville, and they are making it work. That was one thing that I was kind of hoping for when we did the testing session here. I saw them going 3 wide, and they were able to keep it together, and I was hoping that was going to be the case here when we put all 40 cars on track. Fortunately, that seems to be the case, at least right now. I probably just jinxed it. Shelton now in the middle with their teammate Charles Sandfer on the bottom. Dylan Poteet up top side. Dylan Poteet, I was actually looking at the playoff grid when I was doing the playoff grid from heading into Texas to heading into today's race. And Poteet has really fallen down the playoff grid. He is currently situated 21st in the point standings, but there are a lot of drivers that have passed him in recent weeks that he was ahead of a few weeks ago, like K Mathews, Mitchell Collins, Ryan Butcher. They've all passed him in the current playoff grid. So Dylan Poteet definitely needs to get it going as far as moving his way back up the playoff grid, as there is William Brock passing V Almariego. This is for 14th place. His teammate not too far ahead there, Austin LaPlante. LaPlante winning at the last flat track we were at, New Hampshire. As a matter of fact, the driver he was battling for that win, side by side with right now, Michael Norman there in the 3. Looks like LaPlante will move by. That is the 11th position LaPlante just picked up. Meanwhile, ahead of them, battle for 9th, Diego Yepez and Daytona 500 winner Carter Friesen. Ahead of them, Jesse Turner, our Atlanta winner, side by side with Seth Cole in the 77. Seth Cole, with a good run last week at Texas, moved up to 27th in points, so he's back in the top 30 in the standings. And he will take that 7th position away from Turner. Up ahead, we got a battle for 2nd brewing. Zach Rogers all over the back bumper of Ryan Acosta. Levi McIntire in that battle as well. This all going on behind the 11 of J Qualls. Qualls trying to become the 2nd Joanna Atwood Motorsports car to go to victory lane this season. Wyatt Quail was the 1st, winning at the Concrete Monster Mile of Dover. Matter of fact, I'd like to jump to the back, see where Wyatt Quail currently is at, because he comes into this race 32nd in points, 11 points out of 30th in the standings. Oh my goodness, he's all the way back in dead last with his teammate J Gardner. So this is not good for Wyatt Quail. A couple of other former winners back here struggling. Chris Dollerton, Benny Watson. Oh, we got trouble. We got a wreck. That's Trey Wright in the 28. Caution is out. Contact with it looked like the 19 of Carson Gum. And the yellow flag will wave for the first time here tonight at Martinsville. Pace car is going to pick up the race leader, J Qualls. So we managed to go 13 laps before our first yellow, and everybody's going to take the opportunity to pit here under the caution flag rather than under green flag conditions, though I'm not 100% certain that this yellow, with it coming out as early as it did, that these drivers are going to be good to go the rest of the way on fuel. So this may not be the last time we will see these drivers hitting pit road. Well, we almost saw the wreck happen live. I'm pretty certain it happened between Carson Gum and our Lakewood Speedway winner Trey Wright up there in, I think that's turn 1 and 2. So let's go back and take a look at a replay of what brought out the yellow for the first time here tonight at Martinsville. Well, we saw these drivers kind of sliding into the corner as the tires heated up. Not a whole lot of grip here tonight with the cooler conditions, it appears. And watched up there the 18 of Cole Baker. He starts to wheel hop it and get loose. Same happens for Carson Gum. So a couple of teammates there. And then if you watch back on the right side of your screen, here comes Trey Wright into the picture. And he also has that happen. So it looked like it wasn't really a wreck. It was drivers not finding grip up on that top side. I mean, with the cooler conditions here tonight at Martinsville, there's no doubt about it that the track is cooler. And so it's going to be very difficult for these drivers to find grip. And up on that top side, until they really start laying down some rubber in that upper groove, it's going to be very difficult to find grip as well. So Baker gets damaged, Carson Gum gets damaged, as does Trey Wright, as they all slide up and slap the wall. And that's what brought out the caution for the first time here tonight at Martinsville. And if we get into another long green flag run, that might be something we're going to have to keep an eye on when we get 15-20 laps into a run. But for now, let's go back for the restart. The 11 team gets it done on pit road. J Qualls, even though he had the number 2 pit stall, he was able to get out ahead of Zach Rogers and Ryan Acosta. Acosta, who was 2nd when that caution came out, loses a spot. Zach Rogers gains a spot, so he's now up to 2nd. Ryan Acosta falls back to 3rd. Levi McIntire will be 4th. 5th place is Jack Mitchell. 6th, J Shelly. 7th, Seth Cole. 8th place is going to be Diego Yepez. So he is right there within the same area as J Shelly. Adam Garcia picked up some spots as he's now up inside the top 10 and 9th, and Carter Friesen is going to complete your top 10 here on this restart. Nobody out of the race. Everybody is still on the lead lap. A little bit of an extended stay on pit road for Trey Wright and Carson Gum. They line up 37th and 38th. J Millz lines up 39th with Chris Dollerton there in 40th. As the green flag is back in the air. And again, J Qualls ready for the drop of the green. On the initial start, he got away from R Acosta on the outside of the front row. And here he's driving away from Zach Rogers. J Shelly trying to pick up some spots as he's going to go to the inside of Jack Mitchell for 5th. Should mention that everybody on pit road under this caution took 4 tires and fuel. So that, I think, even more confirms my suspicions of these drivers having difficulty finding grip here tonight. And we went back green on lap 19. So if it holds true to about 15 to 20 laps, then we're going to see drivers possibly having trouble keeping it straight again in the corners somewhere around lap 35 or so. We'll keep eyes on that as we got a battle here. Jack Mitchell sliding back. He lost a spot to James Shelly, lost a spot to Seth Cole. He's stuck on that outside line. Now tries to find a way down in front of Adam Garcia to hang on to 7th. And behind them, Carter Friesen. He's hounding Diego Yepez. That is for 9th. J Jefferson. Good run right now for the Valvoline Chevrolet as he's currently in the 11th spot. Jesse Turner side by side with Charles Sandfer for 12th. Let's go back up to the front as Zach Rogers has been able to clear R Acosta. Now Acosta falls back into the clutches of Levi McIntire in a battle for 3rd, and Rogers begins to put the pressure on J Qualls. Rogers trying to become the first 3-time winner this season. We've already got 4 multi-time winners, those being Rogers, William Brock, Jordan Lopez, and J Millz. But Zach Rogers last week got his 2nd win of the season at Texas, and now he wants to go for back-to-back wins and have a 3 in the win column, trying to rack up as many bonus points as he can, drawing closer and closer to the conclusion of the regular season. I mean, even the leaders, let's watch the leaders coming here down the back straightaway into 3. Watch how the rear end seems to snap around on them. Look at this, right into the corner, and you can see right there, it's kind of like they drift into the turn. And with drifting into the corner, there's no doubt about it, that's putting a lot of pressure on that right, or that, the right rear tire. And if that right rear tire wears down, especially as you get longer into a run, it's going to cause very little grip to be able to lean on going into the center of the corner. And I think that's why we saw Cole Baker, Carson Gum, and Trey Wright all have difficulty getting into turn 1 when we had our first caution. And you got to wonder if that's in the back of these drivers' minds now. I mean, are they possibly backing it down just a little bit? I don't think so. J Qualls' best lap was a 19.968. That last time by, he ran just 2 1,000ths slower. So there is no way that he is backing down the pace. R Acosta right there, the pole sitter in 3rd place. You got to wonder that if we do have these drivers have to hit pit road again before the conclusion of this race, R Acosta, of course, starting on the pole, is going to have that first pit stall, so he's going to have a clean exit off of pit road. And you got to wonder if maybe if he can keep himself within close proximity of leader J Qualls and 2nd place Zach Rogers, if that could be the deciding factor into whether he could win this race or not. Levi McIntire, the consistency continues on for this team. It's going to be such a heartbreak for the 99 team if they cannot find victory lane before the conclusion of this season, because they have just been so strong in terms of good finishes. They've got an average finishing position of 14th place, 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and 21 starts. They just don't have a crooked number in the win column. And right now with J Shelly running where he is and with J Qualls out in front, that would knock Levi McIntire out of the playoffs again. His teammate Chris Dollerton has already been to victory lane this season at the Fuel Motorsports Park. And they have been working so hard on trying to get Levi McIntire into victory lane. And last week it almost looked like that was going to be his time, but Zach Rogers was just a little bit better. Shelly right now in that 5th position, running well, and this is kind of a home track for J Shelly. He really considers Richmond, a track that we're going to in a couple of weeks, his primary home track, but he is a Virginia native. And so I guess we could count Martinsville as a home track for him as well. teammate Seth Cole, who moved into the top 30 in points just last week, up there in that 6th position. You got to wonder if he might be trying to possibly hold off Diego Yepez for Shelly, because Shelly's got to keep himself ahead of Yepez to stay in the top 30 in the point standings. A couple of other drivers that he could possibly pass in the points with where he's running right now, Benjamin Miles and V Almariego, so he could move up as high as 28th in points if he continues to run up inside of the top 5. Jack Mitchell there in the 0-1, great run for that single car entry in 7th place. It's a long gap from him back to 8th place though, about maybe half a second before you get back to Adam Garcia. He's currently in that 8th position. Actually, as I'm looking at the ticker, it's almost 2 seconds back now from Mitchell back to Adam Garcia. Garcia there with Carter Friesen and Diego Yepez, along with J Jefferson and V Almariego. And we're now entering into that portion of the race like we did back on the first green flag run, where drivers start to lose that grip. And you got to wonder if we're going to see drivers sliding in the corners again. If they do, we may end up seeing our second caution of the day. Another thing that I should point out as well that is typical of Martinsville, we saw it back at Bristol as well, is the fact of the race leaders possibly catching up to the tail end of the field and traffic coming into play. So far, we've been able to make it past at least the 15-lap mark since going back green, and we're still underway as far as green flag conditions, so maybe these drivers have figured out how to conserve some tires to be able to keep themselves from spinning out into the corners. Now let's wait until J Qualls gets to the start-finish line and see where the tail end of the field currently is. Qualls is at the line now, and looked like the last place car was just going into turn 1, so J Qualls is closing. There you can see they're in the same shot. Benjamin Miles currently in that 40th position heading into turn 3. Qualls into turn 3 right now, and we are definitely going to have the tail end of the field be a problem for these race leaders. Now, as opposed to Bristol, which is a short track, and as opposed to New Hampshire, which is a flat track with very little banking, it looked like with what we saw earlier on here when they were double and 3 wide, looks like the inside line is the preferred line, so you're not going to want to get trapped on the outside line in this race if you're trying to hold on and preserve the race lead. Right now, there's 7 cars up here in the hunt for this victory right now, and again, like we stated, we don't know if indeed these drivers are good to go on fuel. They all came to pit road back around lap 14. So we'll have to see if they can make it the rest of the way on fuel or not. It is a short track, and you're not carrying a whole lot of acceleration through the corners. You're basically coasting through the corners, so that might be an opportunity for these drivers to save a little bit of fuel. So we'll have to see, did that one caution put these drivers within their fuel window to make it the rest of the way? Is it now down to the driver and the car as to who's going to win this race? Take it on board with J Qualls and see just how closely how quickly he is closing in on the rear of the field. As you could see there from Qualls' onboard camera, only about half a straightaway before he catches the tail end of the field. Now, from what I saw at the tail end of the field, really there's no opportunity for teammates to work together and try and block any of these race leaders. Benjamin Miles doesn't really have a teammate up here at the front. I believe that was J Millz in the 98 just ahead of him, and he doesn't really have any teammates up here inside this top 7 either. However, J Millz is a Ford, so I don't know if there'd be any manufacturer alliance or not. Gotta wonder if maybe Zach Rogers holding back, saving a little bit until they get up here to that traffic. And this is going to be very difficult traffic to maneuver as well, because as you can see, J Qualls isn't closing in by a huge margin on Benjamin Miles, because Benjamin Miles is not damaged and off the pace. His car is fully up to speed. Millz running 20.2s, Qualls running 20.1s, so he's only a tenth off. He is not majorly off the pace. Just a byproduct of being trapped near the rear of the field and not being able to make forward progress. So it's not going to be a walk in the park to bypass all these drivers on the tail end of the lead lap at the tail end of the field. James Qualls, Zach Rogers, Ryan Acosta, these guys, they're all going to have to work for it. And while they're concentrating on passing a car that might be just as fast as them, they're going to have to also keep an eye in their rearview mirror on drivers behind them trying to pass them for position. Zach Rogers in that second position, nowhere near William Brock, who came into this race 1 point back from him for the overall points lead. Levi McIntire behind him in fourth. He was 4 points back from the overall points lead. So with where Rogers is running right now, there's no doubt he will head into next week's race as the overall points leader still. Take a look further up on the schedule here, finishing out this season. Next week we're going to, I believe it's our third road course race of the season. We went to Sonoma first, we went to Pensacola second, and we are going to be now going to Watkins Glen. Then the following week, we bring back the 2019 rules package, as we'll be at the Tricky Triangle of Pocono. Then we'll be running during the daytime at Richmond, and the final race of the regular season will be at Auto Club Speedway. The final 3 races of the regular season will be running the 2019 rules package. We've had a stretch of 4 races that are not used in the 2019 rules package, starting back from Lakewood 2 weeks ago into Texas, here into Martinsville, and next week at Watkins Glen. Getting close to 20 laps to go, and getting closer to that tail end of the field. A couple more drivers there that I see that are at the tail end of the field. Dylan Young being one of them. Trey Wright, who brought out our first caution. Saw James Qualls take a little bit lower of an entry into turn 3 there. I thought he might be coming to pit road. Whoa, Zach Rogers! Rogers spins it. Keeps it going. Is that going to bring out a caution? It is. Yellow flag is out as Rogers from the second position lost grip up the track. And that's going to bring out the yellow as Ryan Butcher and Chris Dollerton, I believe, just got put a lap down by leader James Qualls. Oh, look out. Oh, my goodness gracious sakes alive. James Qualls nearly ran to the back of Jose Millz. And everybody's got to get themselves sorted out here. Matt McIntire's got some damage on the 7. I wonder if he might have possibly spun out as Benjamin Millz trying to get around James Qualls. Pretty sure the 24 and the 43 got trapped a lap down. And Zach Rogers kept it going. He's got right side damage, but he kept it going. He's in the 5th position still. So the caution comes out, nearing 20 laps to go. I'm not rightly certain that Zach Rogers was the one that brought out the yellow flag, but obviously we saw that drivers were losing grip again, like what happened to bring out our first caution. So as Qualls leads, we're going to first check and see, is Qualls going to come to pit road? Is everybody going to come to pit lane here, or were they good to go on fuel? I don't see them indicating they're coming to pit lane. And this is going to be interesting because James Qualls is going to have traffic to deal with. I don't think we're going back green with 10 to go. So Ryan Butcher and Chris Dollerton, a couple of former winners this season, will be lining up on that inside line 1 lap down when we go back on the restart. For now, let's go back and take a look. We brought out the caution second time here tonight at Martinsville. This wasn't too terribly far ahead of the leaders either. This was back around the 32nd, 33rd position. Watch the 43 of Chris Dollerton. Well, you can see right there the 24 of Ryan Butcher getting loose into the corner. And I don't know if he got into the right rear of Chris Dollerton and turned him around or not, or if Dollerton just lost it by himself. Whatever the case, both of them losing it. And as we drop back further here, you see Zach Rogers. I think he saw the wreck up ahead. He tried to get on the brakes, possibly wheel hopped it, because that car didn't look like it got loose into the corner. It looked like that car couldn't stop. And he went up and brushed the wall. There you see him refire it, though, and so he was able to maintain the 5th position, but he lost some spots and got a little bit of damage in the bargain. So a tough break there for Zach Rogers, but I'm pretty sure it was the contact, if there was any, at least initially, between Chris Dollerton and Ryan Butcher that brought out the yellow for the first time, or for the second time, I should say, here tonight at Martinsville. Well, we got a little bit of an issue here as we're getting ready for the restart. Ryan Acosta is supposed to line up on the outside line behind J Qualls, and Chris Dollarton's not going to let him. Dollarton's got to line up on the inside line, so this is not exactly the way they're supposed to restart, as the green flag is going to fly in the air nonetheless. We're going to have 15 laps to go. Next time by, J Qualls trying to gap himself once again. He has been a master of restarts here tonight at Martinsville. Got the lead from the outside of the front row from Ryan Acosta at the start, and then shot away from Zach Rogers when we went back green after our first caution. Now he's got lap traffic between himself and Ryan Acosta, who's now trying to clear Chris Dollarton. Another thing that's going to be very interesting here is nobody came to pit road. So these drivers are still on the same old worn tires they've been on during this last run. So I have a feeling that grip is still going to be an issue for these guys, as Zach Rogers trying to fight his way back to the front, now taking third place away from Levi McIntire. Jack Mitchell right there as well. Carter Friesen drove it in deep on Seth Cole as Shelly way up the track in the 71. I saw when we were looking back through the field to see who might have brought out the caution earlier, I saw some damage on Matt McIntire, so I went back to find out what happened to him. He had some contact with Jessica Shelton. As he slid up into Shelton, they both slid up into the wall. They kept it going. There was no caution thrown for that. So that is why Matt McIntire had the rear end damage that we saw. I just saw J Gardner in the 14 on pit road. I don't know if this is a regularly scheduled stop for him or not. Shelton here at the rear of the field. And did Gardner retire out of the race? Oh, he scored 2 laps down, is the 14. I don't know if he came back on track maybe or not. Trying to find him. There he is. Yeah, he's back on track, so I don't know why he was on pit road for as long as he was. Now he's in the 3-wide situation with William Brock and Julius Anderson. So not a good day right now for the 14 at Joanna Atwood Motorsports, but right now, 2 of his teammates currently scored first and second. Qualls out in front, Ryan Acosta second. Our Pensacola winner, a lap down, Ryan Butcher in between the 2 of them. Then he got another lap car in Chris Dollarton before you get back to Zach Rogers, who is about 2 seconds back from the race leader. Battle is on for 4th. Jack Mitchell to the inside of Levi McIntire. Then you got another battle back there for 6th between Adam Garcia and J Shelly. And look who is right on Shelly's back bumper. Diego Yepez in the 0, who's only 2 points back from Shelly for 30th in the standings. Carter Friesen's going to alleviate some pressure there, though, as now he drives it in deep on Yepez for 8th. Mitchell Collins right there in the 10th position. Good run for him in that 22. That team's been putting together some good runs after getting that victory back at Kansas. Collins is 19th in the points coming into this race. James Shelly holding his own there against Adam Garcia. Same for McIntire against Mitchell. Those 2 duos have been side by side last couple of laps. Speaking of laps, laps are running out for anybody to do anything with J Qualls, who has dominated this race since the start. He has led, I believe, all 70 laps so far, and he wants to lead the last 5. Ryan Acosta will have to deal with Ryan Butcher first before he can get up there to Qualls. And the one driver that does not like to see Qualls out in front right now would be Levi McIntire, because Qualls comes into this race 20th in the points. A win would certainly put him into the playoff grid, and if Shelly remains in the top 30 in points, Levi McIntire, who was in the playoffs coming into this race via points, would be knocked out. 4 laps to go. Ryan Butcher closing a little bit there on J Qualls, but he does have damage, let's remember. I don't really think Martinsville is considered an aerodynamic track, so I don't think that's going to affect him speed-wise. Might affect him handling-wise in the corners, though. If he can get up to the back bumper of J Qualls, make a move to get back in the tail of the lead lap, that could open up the bottom lane for Ryan Acosta to make a move. But right now, J Qualls continuing to hold about a car length and a half between himself and Ryan Butcher. 2 laps to go here at Martinsville. The pace has certainly gone down from what it was earlier on. Qualls running lap times about a half second slower than he did at the start of this race. Just trying to conserve, trying to baby it through the corners, make sure he makes it back to the checkered flag. He'll see the white flag this time. One more lap to go. J Qualls started out the season really good, but after the first half of the regular season really hit a bit of a slump. Fell down almost outside the top 20 in points. But here tonight, he's going to bounce back and maybe clinch a playoff spot as J Qualls wins the STP 500 at Martinsville. A 1-2 finish for Joanna Atwood Motorsports as R Acosta brings it home in the second position. And J Qualls, as I stated just moments ago, may have just very well put himself into the playoffs for this season's Duracell Cup Series chase for the championship. Well, that race turned out pretty doggone good. We had some good battling through the field. And I will tell you, I was a little hesitant putting Martinsville on the schedule, but great racing early on, and a little bit of an interesting thing where we saw drivers have difficulty with grip going into the corners. Very typical Martinsville, so I like that a lot. But J Qualls had the car to beat, no doubt about it, from the very start of this race, and nobody could challenge him. He'll win over R Acosta. Zach Rogers, great run there in third as he was up in second for most of the race. He ended up having a little bit of an issue going into turn one when we were under caution, dropped back to fifth, fought his way back up to third place, so he will undoubtedly still keep the overall points lead heading into next week's race at Watkins Glen. Jack Mitchell, a great run for him, a great effort in fourth. He was able to get around Levi McIntire and drop McIntire back to fifth. The consistent finishes for McIntire continue, but not what he needs in order to get himself into a playoff spot. Adam Garcia brings it home in sixth, a great effort for him, as I believe he came into this race still dead last in points. No, actually he didn't. Nope, came in 37th in points after a good run last week at Texas, so continuing to build off of that. J Shelly finishes in 7th. He finishes 3 positions ahead of Diego Yepez, and we'll have to see what kind of cushion he now has in the top 30 in points. I think he'll stay at least in the top 30 in the standings. Mitchell Collins popped up late into the top 10 and 8th. How about Austin LaPlante? Same deal for him. Our New Hampshire winner. Apparently he likes those tracks where there's not a lot of banking as he brings it home in 9th, and Diego Yepez will finish out the top 10. Then you had Charles Sandfer in 11th, Carter Friesen there in 12th. Trent Dunham, great run for him in 13th. Then Jesse Turner 14th. Seth Cole faded back to the 15th position. Dylan Poteet picked up some spots late as he jumped up to 16th. J Jefferson slipped back to 17th. V Almariego was 18th. Benny Watson 19th. And Cole Baker, who pretty much brought out our first caution with the inclusion of Carson Gum and Trey Wright. He managed to battle back for a 20th place finish. Look on down through the remainder of the finishing results from today's race. We had 36 cars finish on the lead lap and 4 cars finished off the lead lap. Ryan Butcher, Chris Dollarton, Jessica Shelton. Butcher and Dollarton, they fell a lap down after they brought out the second caution and got lapped by J Qualls. Shelton spent an extended amount of time on pit road repairing damage that she sustained after contact with M McIntire. And Johnny Gardner spent a couple of laps on pit road after we went back green on our second restart. Not really sure what the problem was for him, but it put him dead last in tonight's finishing results. But that is going to do it here this evening from Martinsville. J Qualls becomes the, I want to say 17th different winner of the season. It might be 18th different race winner on the year as he takes the checkered flag here tonight at the Paperclip Martinsville Speedway. If you enjoyed tonight's race, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, become part of the crew today. We have shown you full finishing results. These are your point standings heading into next week. Next week, we're heading to upstate New York as we get ready for our third road course stop of the season at Watkins Glen International. Hope you'll tune in for that. Should be a wild one. Until then, though, I've been Seth Cole. You've been watching a production of Offline Racing at its best. We'll see you guys next week at the Glen.